We are back in the garage today, and we drained the fuel tank yesterday before we both had to shoot off to work, so that's now empty. I've got some fresh fuel to put in, so we're going to try that in a little while. We've just been caught up trying to remove the plastic panels from the back here. Theoretically, a 5-minute job at most, but everything was rusty as hell, and so we've had to drill screws out and saw things off and make a massive job out of what's something that should be relatively easy. But it's done now, so we're going to move on. Before we try and start the bike, we're going to do the valve clearances. So Kieran's just checking what they should be, and that's what we're going to do now. Righto, then we're getting into it now. We are about to remove the valve cover there. This thing was in the way, some kind of secondary air intake jobby. What was it?
A pair valve.
A pair valve.
Supposedly.
It provides pairs for the engine if it's feeling a bit peckish.
Bit of fruity business.
All self-explanatory. There's just a couple of bolts holding that on and some pipes. There are three covers on three
covers, yeah.
3 covers on the nuts and bolts. 3 bolts on the cover. 1 on this side, 2 on the other. This jobby was also on the top, but there's just 2 bolts there. So Kieran, if you'd be so kind as to remove that, we'll investigate what's under there.
See if I can get it out this way. It might have to come your way, or just make a little musical horse tune. Oh, there's a rubber jobber just there. No, I'm making a right ash of this.
I think it's got to go out in a very specific way. Just be careful not to scrape it all the way across the top of the engine there.
Might have to have a little re-evaluation of this one.
Alright, let's get that off and come back. Well, that was a song and dance. We had to feel that out there, but that's what we've got.
Ta-da!
Exhaust valve, inlet valve at the back there. We're going to do the valve clearances now. Valve clearances then. I have removed the inspection cap here, and you can't really see it, but there is a thing to turn that with. That's, what size is that? That is 14mm, so it's a 14mm crankshaft bolt type thing in there that you can turn, which turns the engine. There is another inspection cap in here where you can see some marks appearing as you turn it. So what you've got to do is you've got to turn it anti-clockwise until you get a T mark there. So I'll see if I can get in there. Can you see?
I think other engines may vary in their markings, but for this particular item, we're looking for a T.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can find some light and show you that. Okay, is this any better? So there's your 14mm down there. And in there, you can see a line. And just above that, you can't really see it, but there is a T stamped into that. And that is lined up with, there's a little notch right in the top of this inspection cap. Again, you can't really see it very clearly, but those things are lined up. And what that means is, we're at top dead centre, which is where we need to do the valve clearances. So if you are at top dead centre, there should be some play in that. You should be able to move that up and down, and also you should be able to move the inlet one up and down. It's very slight, but it is there. They should be what, 0.08 mil?
0.08mm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already saying that this one on this side is very baggy. It's very loose.
Depending on your sort of metric system or imperial system, 0.003 inches.
Yeah, if you're one of those people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's to me looking pretty baggy, so we're going to get the feeler gauges and get those measured and changed.
Give it a good old feel up. Okay, switching views to this side for my absolute sweet film skills. John has loosened off the top nut there.
This one here.
Yeah, I've got a fine bit of feeling going on. I need a teeny tiny device for...
So it's 0.08, wasn't
Yes.
it, mil? So this is a 0.08 feeler gauge that has to fit in that gap there. You can see. This one's quite loose. This one's very loose, but this one's still loose. So what you have to do is slacken off the lock nut not quite that much, I just did that to show you. And then you can turn this, there's a square head on there which you can usually just turn by hand. So I'm tightening that down until we've got a sort of sliding fit, so I can still slide it through, but it does pinch a bit, so it's like a there's a little bit of resistance as you're sliding it, so that's about there. I can still move it, but it's pinching it. So what you've got to do now, if you've got that set, is to keep that where it needs to be and then tighten the lock nut, which is a bit tricky to do. You can hold it with a pair of needle nose pliers and then turn that one, but whichever way you do that, that's the idea. And once you've locked that lock nut back down, you need to then check that valve clearance again to make sure that it's not moved and it is where you need it to be. And then once you've done that one, or that one, whichever one you do first, obviously do the other one, and then put everything back together. So I need more hands than this really, so I'm going to just do this without filming it. We're all back together now. The valve clearance on this side, on the inlet side, was out slightly, so I adjusted that one. The valve clearance on the exhaust side was absolutely miles out, like massively out as valve clearances go. So I suspect that will not have helped the engine to run smoothly, which might have been some of the problem that we had yesterday. So I'm happy that we've done this job, definitely worth doing. We just need to put everything back together now. We'll put the fuel tank back on, we'll put some fuel in, and we'll try starting her up, see how she runs. But just before we do that, just to clarify, now these are tightened up, I have checked them again, they are still 0.08, yeah, so wherever I said that they were, they still are that now that they're tightened up. Before I disappear anywhere and start putting everything back together, I'm just going to double check down here that the engine is still at the T mark, because if that's moved and you've adjusted the valve clearances, it's thrown everything out. But you can see we're still at top dead centre, the valve clearances are correct, so now we can start putting everything back together. Cool.
While we've got the access, we might as well do a little bit of tarting up, make her a bit more presentable. We'll probably get a whole bunch of corrosion building back on it when we're splashing through the old puddles, but I think that's a bit further down the line yet.